If you watch anime, you know there's a certain amount of suffering that protagonists have to go through before they can become the strongest. However, what if there was a protagonist who skipped all of that? Someone who's been the strongest since they were a child and has genuinely never lost. On paper, it sounds like a terrible idea. It'd be like if Isaki started Blue Lock as the world's best striker. It just wouldn't make much sense, it wouldn't really be interesting to follow, and all of the tension and the growth, it would just disappear. Despite that, there's one sports anime that's attempting to make this work, and today I'm going to be explaining where it succeeds and where it fails compared to other shows with highly overpowered characters. The anime we're talking about is Beyblade X, which is Beyblade set in a pretty modern world of sponsorships and social media. At the core of this series is an invincible blader named Jackson, aka Blader X, who for some reason can't lose. No matter what happens, even if people cheat against him, or if they use better technology, or if they train specifically to beat him, Jackson's skill is that he adapts to anything. Typically, characters who are this overpowered in their own universe, they'll usually get written out or they just won't show up for a while, because their presence kills a lot of the suspense. Despite that, Beyblade X takes a pretty unique approach by having Jackson take part in more battles than anyone else. As of making this video, he's had over 70 different matchups, which is way ahead of second place, and all of the big conflicts tend to center around him in one way or another. You might be wondering then, how does the series handle an MC who never loses? And there are a few answers to this. Firstly, unlike Saitama, who was instantly proven to be the strongest, Jackson's true power was unclear for a long time. In the first season, he had a few battles that were extremely close, to the point his own teammates thought he was done. This gave the impression that strong bladers had the potential to beat him, and it allowed his early matchups to have some real tension. It was only till around episode 40 that you realize something's wrong, because by that stage there was just one blader left who stood a chance against him. To put it another way, the show spent 40 plus episodes building Jackson up to be the final boss in someone else's story. That other person was Chrome Ryugu, aka Jackson's former teammate, and yeah, the rivalry between these two was deeper than just Beyblade. At its core, their relationship posed an interesting question that you don't always see in sports anime, which is, what do you do after you've achieved everything? If we go back to using Blue Lock as a comparison, imagine if the series began after they'd already won the World Cup and it was about Isaki and Bachira's relationship and what they decided to do next. Beyblade X is basically that, because in this show, the goal of all professional bladers is to reach the top of the X Tower. On each floor of this tower are the best bladers on the planet, and if they win matches against each other, then they get to move up to higher levels. In episode 1, Jackson and Chrome's team reach the top floor and become champions in the process, and this is the moment that everything fell apart. From Chrome's perspective, he wanted to stay at the top and defend their title, and basically cement their legacy as the strongest bladers. By contrast, Jackson never cared about his legacy, because to him, blading was purely something he does for fun. This is why, when they reached the top, he felt like there was no one left who could give him a real challenge, except for possibly Chrome himself. For that reason, Jackson immediately quit the team without even giving it a second thought, and his ultimate goal was to one day challenge Chrome for the title. To do that, he creates a secret identity so that no one knows it's him, and then he starts a brand new team with this random guy he found on the street. Understandably, all of this was a massive shock to Chrome, because, after everything they'd been through, it kind of hurt him to know that Jackson didn't need him. The shock was so bad that it literally sent him into psychosis, and a chunk of the series is spent with Chrome just dealing with his obvious mental health problems. In that sense, a lot of Jackson's rivalries aren't about whether he can win, because we know he can. Instead, the focus is actually his opponents trying to prove something. Whether they're trying to prove that they've changed, or whether they're trying to prove they're the fastest or the strongest, Jackson is the final test that they have to get past to prove that point. The benefit of this format is that the side characters do get fleshed out incredibly well, and for me, this is the show's biggest strength. If we compare it to the original Beyblade series, I'd say the battles are the things that we mostly tuned in for, but with this one, it is definitely more character driven, and a great example of this is Takumi. Takumi is essentially a bully from the first episode who I honestly didn't expect to have any significance going forward. This is the type of person who appears once and doesn't really affect the plot again. But because of the nature of this show and because it is so character focused, we end up seeing the struggles of him losing his sponsorship and facing the prospect of early retirement. We also see massive personal growth for a guy who is just one of many side characters, but yet he gets a lot of focus, and there are other characters like this. People like CL, I mean, there are a lot of them. I could go on, but the point is, side characters get fleshed out super in-depth. Doing this sort of relieves the pressure on Blader X to be the main focus of the story, and One Punch Man does do this as well, but the difference is that Saitama will genuinely disappear for a long time, whereas Jackson is present pretty much all the time. The reason he's able to have so much screen time, even though he never loses, is partly because Beyblade is a team sport, meaning that even if he personally wins, his team can still lose overall. When they get in the ring, there's nothing Jackson can do to help them, besides maybe give advice, but practically, there's nothing he can do to help them in any way. If we compare this to other shows with overpowered characters, they usually have the option to help out their comrades. By contrast, Robin and Multi, they can only rely on their own skills, and Jackson's presence doesn't help them when they're facing a significantly stronger opponent. However, while this is a good thing, since it allows them to keep the suspense even though Jackson is so OP, the problem is the predictability of the battles. To be specific, I'm only talking about Robin and Blader X, because once you realize that Jackson doesn't lose, the fact that Robin also never wins, it becomes just really annoying. For me, I think the finale of season 1 was the perfect time to give him his first win, since his battle in that episode is genuinely my favorite in the entire show so far, up until the moment he gets screwed over. When he lost that match, I just knew there was no hope for him, because that was the time to get the win. And unsurprisingly in season 2, he also doesn't get any real wins. I mean, the best he gets in an official match is a draw. To be fair, it was a very impressive draw that had a big impact, but still, there were over a dozen losses throughout the season, including to a random unnamed character who we never see again. To have Robin and Jackson's battles being this predictable, it does get tiring after a while, but I would say Robin's losses are way more annoying than Jackson's wins. Even if Jackson is always winning, he does find new ways to finish off the match. He's always inventing new things to do, and to explain what I mean, we need to talk about the rail. In this generation of Beyblade, each stadium has a rail around the edge, which connects to these gears that are at the bottom of each Beyblade. This system allows bladers to strategically speed things up mid-battle and perform various types of extreme dash. As you'd expect, Jackson is by far the best at doing this, and we frequently see him developing new types of extreme dash, which I guess shows that even though he's the strongest, his growth as a blader isn't done. Ironically though, in a show that develops characters really well, Jackson he's grown as a blader, but as a character, he starts off as a friendly, egocentric blader, and as of making this video, he's exactly the same. From what I can remember, there's one time where he gets seriously frustrated. Besides that, all he cares about is having fun, regardless of the mental or physical impact that it has on those around him. Some quick examples include abandoning Chrome without a second thought, risking the future of a small business on the outcome of one match, and also getting his new team suspended because he kept blading random people on the street. In each of those cases, he did things to increase his enjoyment of blading with no thought to the impact that it might have on everyone else. This carefree nature can actually be pretty funny at times, and it is why he's one of my favorite characters, but the fact is that the fact he never grows up and the fact he never faces any adversity, really, it does get old after a while. I think whoever writes the show is also aware of this, which is why the role of main character is shared between Team Persona as a whole. Even though Jackson has the most battles, I'd estimate that screen time between the group is pretty equal, with Multi having her own episodes, Robin having his own episodes, and Jackson just being there all the time. So yeah, in terms of screen time, it's pretty much equal. When I had a look online, I realized this show is way more divisive than I expected, with a chunk of the internet hating it, mainly thanks to Robin, aka Bird, while others had a mostly positive view. Personally, while I don't think Beyblade X has the aura of the original series, I think as a casual watch, it's honestly not that bad. Yes, it does get frustrating, and yes, there are some elements that are incredibly predictable, but for me, I like pretty much all the characters except this one guy, and the concept of an extreme dash, I think it's the best gimmick that Beyblade has ever had. This whole mechanic is actually what got me back into, buying the real thing. And I also ended up playing the newest game for the Nintendo Switch. Believe me, I've played a solid amount of these games over the years, including on the Game Boy Advance, on the DS, and this one is just so fun, especially when you play as a defense type as well. It's just really fun. Ultimately though, the question we asked at the start of the video is, does this anime work even though it has an MC who never loses? And based on everything we spoke about, I do think, yeah, it does work, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. If Jackson continues to not evolve as a character, then yeah, at some point he might hold the series back, but right now I think the one who's doing the most damage is actually Bud and his just total lack of wins. A small part of me thinks the show is setting up for Blader X's first loss to be against Robin, but at the same time, logically, it would just take so much training and so many storylines for Jackson to be surpassed by Bud that it almost seems impossible. Anyhow, if you made it this far, thank you for watching till the end, and if you have any thoughts on Beyblade X, whether they're positive, negative, then let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. My next video should be a full breakdown of JJK Season 3, just like the previous breakdowns I've done for Season 1, Season 2, and the movie, so keep an eye out for that, and until the next one, peace out.